probably pronouncing this wrong. Anguilla Anguilla, or European eels, are Britain's native species of eel. Eels are actually fish having one pair of pectoral fins and are long-bodied. Before researching this video, I'd always assumed that eels were carnivorous, but apparently they're actually omnivores, living up to 85 years in the wild, averaging around 55 years in captivity, growing up to 52 inches long and 15 pounds in weight. Anguillids are a very popular food source in many regions around the world. I know people in the UK have jellied eel. I'm sure it's massive in the Asian market as well. The blood of European eels is actually poisonous, but that poison is actually destroyed during the cooking process. Naturally nocturnal and secretive, preferring to burrow themselves in the mud and rocks during the day, emerging at night to feed on a wide range of food depending on their current place in their life cycle, from fish, mollusks, crustaceans, even insects, worms, and anything they can scavenge. Like catfish, their long bodies gives them great power and strength and gives them the ability to actually swim backwards. So when you have them on the line, very powerful, very good fighting fish. Reports suggest they can even climb and navigate on dry land, finding ways around obstructions which could stop them from migrating. It's incredible. Even crawling their way onto fields to eat snails and slugs, although this is only usually observed when the weather is particularly wet and rainy. Although Anguilla Anguilla, or the European eel, is a freshwater eel, they actually make an astonishing journey all the way to the Sargasso Sea, which is basically in the Bermuda Triangle, and they do this migration to spawn. Very few freshwater species can actually cope with the salinity of coastal and oceanic water. This is a very rare and specialized trait that only few species actually possess, including bull sharks. I think I heard a rumor that pike can also withstand salt water, although I don't know how true that is. So this is actually known as catadromus. So as a catadromous fish, European eels spend most of their adult lives in the freshwater before migrating back to the open ocean where they were spawned to reproduce. Freshly hatched eels in the Bermuda Triangle or the Sargasso Sea can actually drift around in the sea for months to even years before finally swimming back to more coastal areas. European eels go through many life cycles, as mentioned earlier. So as larvae, eels are known as Lipotocyphilus. I've probably butchered that, I'm sorry. This is due to their thin heads and their wider bodies, and they actually look like a leaf. As they grow a little bit older, they're still very small. They become translucent, and at this stage they're actually called glass eels, looking like almost like little tadpoles. Once the eels enter freshwater systems, they transform again. At this point, they actually start putting on colour, putting on pigment on the skin, and then at this point known as elvers. And between this stage and the next stage, which is their juvenile stage, known as yellow eels, can actually take up to 20 years, but usually takes around 5 years for elvers to put on the size and develop into yellow eels. The reason they're called that is because they have a yellow underbelly. I've actually caught one. I couldn't find the photo of it. So the other photos and stuff in the videos that you're watching, they're very green. I caught this one. It was a lot smaller of an eel, and it was almost like, I can't even explain the color. It was like lime green, but like very yellowish. Very, very, very cool. During this time, they're actually swimming further and further away from salt water before reaching what's known as the silver eel, or just another term, just adulthood basically. Once they really reach this stage, they travel all the way down the streams, sometimes over dry ground, to reach other streams which provide an easier route back into the sea, at which point they will travel through the sea back to their spawning grounds in the Bermuda Triangle to reproduce. It is unknown how long this journey can take, and sorry about that, my dad knocked on the door. So the majority of their lives out at sea actually remains a mystery. In fact, very little about their lives in general in freshwater habitats is known either. Students at Bournemouth University have been catching and tagging eels with microchips, silver eels, adult European eels, in an attempt to learn more about their inland movements, basically they want to find out if they live in one pool for 20 years, or do they travel from different canals, different channels, different streams, different water systems and wetlands, and do they do this in search of food, or what? Basically, just what is their behavior, and why do they exhibit such said behavior? Right, so unfortunately over the last 40 years, the numbers of glass eels that arrive in Europe has been falling. I read a source that said up to 95% fewer numbers as seen 40 years ago. Speculations is that, I don't know how to pronounce this word, if I'm going to pronounce it wrong or butcher it again, Weers, it might be a German word, I don't know, dams, canal barricades, as well as seawalls and hydro plantations may be blocking their migration efforts from the sea into freshwater environments. Some further research uncovered the fact that Europe has a total of 24,000 hydro plants, and that was in 2012, so imagine 2021, that number is probably a lot higher. So due to the decline of European eels, that's led to European Commission's developing an eel recovery plan that aims to return European eel stocks, adults and glass eels, to sustainable levels. Each member state in the EU must establish its own national eel management plan. Scotland developed one in 2008. Now, I don't know the status of this, especially after Brexit. So hopefully the UK still implements the eel protection management plan. So we're now starting to talk about more sciencey type stuff. So RNA controls multiple biological processes through negative post-transcriptional regulation of gene expression. I don't fully understand what that means, but basically it controls different biological processes and it can be used to monitor said biological processes. So in this particular context, it's actually being used to determine the toxicant changes in microRNA expressions in the liver of Anguilla Anguilla, or European eels. So one particular study that aimed to do this to compare the differential expression between a polluted site located in Gironde estuary and a pristine site in Arachan Bay. Both these areas are in France. So the liver of the eels is chosen because of its role in the metabolism of pollutants. So according to the study, only trace amounts of metal concentrations were found measured in the livers of eels from either site. So from either the polluted site in, let me just read it again, in the estuary, or the pristine site on the bay. There was very minimum traces of metals or like metallic pollutants in the livers of the eels. However, individuals from the polluted site, so from the estuary, contained higher levels of persistent organic pollutants such as polychlorinated biphenyls, again I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, organochlorine pesticides, and polybrominated diphenyl esters. Right, sorry about that. I had to do a little bit more research. So a polychlorinated biphenyl is an organic chlorine compound widely developed as a dielectric to coolant fluids in electronic apparatuses. So like printers and stuff like that. Very weird. And polybrominated diphenyl ethers are a group of man-made compounds that are used in flayed retardants in a wide range of products, including electronical equipment, textiles, and foams. So these man-made and some organic compounds were found in the muscles of the eels at the contaminated or polluted site, at a much higher frequency than those collected at the pristine site on the bay. Regular restocking of European eels in European fisheries is a very common practice. Unfortunately, the practice, the conditions of the environment, so weather conditions, as well as the restocking practice itself, can lead to a high level of mortality in glass eels. Study reported that glass eels were most vulnerable after a few months after being stocked into a new water. This could be due to many environmental stresses, such as predation from gulls. I think perch have also been found with glass eels in their stomach as well, so perch will eat them. Handling before being stocked could even cause extra stress. Being stocked during daytime instead of at night also makes them more vulnerable. So there's many different things to consider in the preservation and the decrease of mortality rate in captivity. Other observations have been made into glass eels' preferred habitats, and apparently they prefer shallow, sheltered waters where the movement of the water or the flow of the water is quite low. Right, so in closing, guys, if anyone's watching, I doubt you are, and if you are, you probably haven't made it 11 minutes in, but thanks for watching so much, means a lot. I really wanted to push my message of conservation of these amazing animals. They are very cool, and it's going to be a huge shame if we're not able to catch and look at these incredible animals. Such a cool life story, such a cool life cycle, migration, and they're just very, very cool. Part of the inspiration to many sea serpent legends. And I mean, put it this way, man, if you caught a 52-inch or a 15-pound eel out of your local canal in the UK or France or Germany or wherever you are, that is a river monster.